Hey Rachel, it's great to see you.
Hi, nice to see you too, Whitney. Thanks for having me.
Where do you live?
I am in very northern Vermont, so I'm actually, as the crow flies, only a few miles from the Canadian border.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, because it looks like super cozy and snowy where you are.
Yes, it's very snowy. We had weather in the 20s today, so it's like a heat wave compared to what it's been. So we're enjoying it.
Yeah, well, as I said, that my kids are like on they've only almost been out of school for 2 weeks now because of wintry weather here in Tennessee, because we are just not used to it here. So we've been out and it's icy, and today it's in the 30s and it feels like a heat wave today. So I'm like,
Yeah,
my blood is finally thickened and I'm getting used to the colder temps, but I'm ready for them to be gone. I'm over them.
yeah.
Well, today I wanted to talk to you not about the weather, um, but about your postpartum journey and your mission. So, do you mind starting with just saying a little bit about yourself and what it is that you focus on?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm a trained physical therapist. I've been a PT as long as I've been a runner since like 2000. Let's see, I graduated in 2006, so it's been a while. So we're coming up on 18 years. And then I had my daughter when I was my first daughter when I was in college. So I actually have a 22-year-old, and then I have three
Wow.
other kids. So my littles are 5, 3, and 1. But after I had my second um, child, so my 5-year-old, my now 5-year-old, I had a lot of issues in pregnancy and then in postpartum with getting back to running. And so that's what really spurred me to get into women's health and to do some extra training. And that's really what I focus on now with my patients and my clients. Um, so yeah, so personal experience leading to, personal development, and now trying to help other moms kind of navigate the waters of running through pregnancy and then getting back to it postpartum quickly, but also as safely as possible, and healing, but also healing well and preventing issues from happening. Like if we get, sometimes we go back too fast, and so that can lead to some problems as well.
Yes, I have a lot of follow-up questions. One second, my daughter Eleanor is
Yeah.
wanting to ask me a question. Yes. Oh, she needs me to open something for her. You can come say hi.
Hi.
This is oh, you're the
Hi.
alert in the background.
There we go.
There
I
you
can see you
go.
now. Hi. Nice to see you.
She's 9. She's my oldest. And then I have a son who is just turned 7. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Thank you, sweetie. Um, so going back to the difficulties that you had, um, what in particular happened in which, if you feel open talking about it, in which you realize
Sure.
that there was a gap, like a knowledge gap for women trying to return postpartum?
Yeah. So I like I said, I've been a runner for a long time. I started running after my first, so I was running through my second pregnancy. By the time I got to like 6 months of pregnancy, I had to stop. I had a lot of pelvic pain, which I later learned was symphysis pubis dysfunction, or pelvic girdle pain, PGP. And I felt lost. Like I had been a PT for, you know, whatever, 13 years at that point, 14 years, and um, worked all sorts of different clinical settings with all sorts of different athletes and runners. And I hadn't had a ton of exposure working with people who are pregnant. I did have some, because where I was working at the time, we had an OB clinic and they refer patients to me, regularly, but I hadn't seen anybody with this kind of pain before, which I have later learned is actually very common. It's just like a lot of moms are told that it's normal and it's just normal pregnancy pain and just sort of deal with it. And so I was in that same boat where my OB was basically like telling me, well, once you have the baby, it'll go away, which that's not true for 100% of cases.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and and then I was also told, and then my coworkers that I was working with were trying to, some of them were trying to help, and then others were just not interested in helping me to try to problem solve. So that was like really frustrating. But lots of different suggestions, like, is it your SI joint? Oh, you herniated your disc. And I'm like, no, it's definitely not like either of those things. I do have some, I do did have SI joint pain, and a lot of times that goes together. But basically, I had to stop running, and I wasn't getting answers from my doctor. I wasn't getting any answers from coworkers. So I basically like dove into the literature just because I had access to you know, research journals and stuff like that. And there is a ton of stuff out there, but it's a very like small portion of like physical therapy. Now, pelvic health, I think, has gotten a lot bigger over the last few years. Like, and I don't know if it's because now I'm sort of in that arena that I'm seeing it more, you know, like when you're looking, you know, like when you're buying a car and you're like, you never saw that car before.
Right.
And now
Yeah.
all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. So it's kind of like the same thing. But in any case, I felt like I was just lost. And my OB was like, well, you're the PT. So basically, like, you figure it out kind of thing. And I was like, this is not like my area of expertise. That wasn't my area of expertise at the time. And so, anyway, I just tried to deal with it in pregnancy. I kept up with like yoga and walking and light strength training as best I could. But my harder, like, it was even harder for me to get back to running. It took me like over a year, almost 18 months to like feel like I could run normally again. Because I, one, started too soon. Research came out later, as you probably know, like in 2019, I believe it was, with the guidelines about waiting 12 weeks, doing correct rehab before then. And I had my son in 2018. So I was kind of before all of those guidelines came out. So it was really challenging for me to get back to it. Fast forward a little bit, and I took a certification through a physical therapy certification to become a pregnancy and postpartum corrective exercise specialist. And mostly I did it for myself at the time, selfishly, right? Because I wanted to heal myself and figure out what the heck was going on. And so I was able to do that. I was able to finally get back to running, did a half marathon pushing my son in the stroller, and then was able to run through my next two pregnancies up until like 2 days before delivery and get back to it like 3 months postpartum. So it was very different, you know, in my last two pregnancies compared to that one. So that's why I, you know, it's my own personal story, but I became so passionate about it because it was like, if I'm dealing with this, then there's got to be other moms out there that are dealing with the same thing. And I think a lot of times we go to the doctor and and it's just, or midwife or whoever it is that you're seeing, and they're just like, oh, well, you know, it's pregnancy, you know, just kind of like blanket, just like, oh, it's pregnancy. But like as moms, like we kind of know like this is a little more than just like a pregnancy, like aches and pains, like, oh, my low back is a little sore, right? From carrying a baby. This is like, it feels like my body is splitting in two. Like I can't stand on one leg to get dressed. I can't go up and down the stairs without pain. I can't get in and out of my car like a normal person. You know, like the rolling over in bed, just like those simple things, like those are different than like regular pregnancy pain. So that's kind of how I came to be in this place where I'm working, like I work specifically, love working specifically with runners, but also with moms who have, you know, leaking, prolapse, and then of course SPD symptoms.
So your latter two pregnancies where you were able to run and you were able to return 12 weeks postpartum, um, that you credit knowing those corrective exercises that you did throughout pregnancy and then probably waiting and then also doing the correct exercises postpartum to you having a much more smoother journey.
Right. Yeah. And I won't say that I didn't have the pain in my last two pregnancies. I definitely had some of it. I used, you know, like I had appropriate belly support for those times. Tummy tape, what I ended up using my last pregnancy, and I
Oh,
love using
really?
that.
And that worked?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like
Okay.
I was somebody who I didn't like lots of layers. Like I couldn't stand having extra layers, especially
Yeah.
when working out. So like doing the tummy tape was really helpful. And then yes, knowing like the right exercises to do was definitely helpful. So it's not that I didn't have pain; it's that I had it and it was manageable. It was at a level that I could still exercise with, and take appropriate rest, make appropriate modifications while I was pregnant, and then starting back up postpartum. Now, I think like a lot of times too, there's a misconception that, and I don't know if you see this as well, but like there's that 6 week like all clear sort of like, I'm going to call it a misnomer because it's not really like, it's sort of like an arbitrary
Yeah.
mark, I feel like. And there's definitely things that can be done that, and you should be doing like pre 6 weeks, and there's things that you should be doing like post the 6 weeks, like for those 12 weeks. So it doesn't mean like don't do anything for 12 weeks and then start running again. Like you definitely need that build. And so that's what I teach moms now is like that, like that acute, like 3 phases, right? Like that acute rehab, just like healing and rehab, like immediate postpartum, then that like strength building phase, and then like the running prep, right? So that but when you get to that 12 weeks, like you're ready to go. So it's not like don't do nothing. But
It,
yeah, knowing those exercises
it
is
mirrors very
critical.
much like being injured. I feel like it's a very similar journey.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and if you think about like people who are injured or like have surgery, like somebody who had like an ACL reconstruction, you wouldn't be just like, oh, like go start running, like listen to your body whenever you feel like it. And that's
that's
like
how
what we
it's
tell
dealt
moms,
with. I
right?
know. It is really ridiculous when you think of it that way.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's more common. There's a lot more people having babies and people having, major
Yes.
ACL surgery. Okay, so for the women who are listening who maybe become pregnant, are in their postpartum journey, what do you wish that they would know? Because it still can be kind of confusing as like, okay, so what
Mhm.
corrective exercises should I be doing and when and like what should I be doing postpartum for those 6 week phase, that 6 week acute phase? Like what should they know and how can they be proactive?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And there are like just general exercises that I usually that I share with people. As like free resources on my website. But also, if I would say if you're like those are great, like if you're looking to like prevent something, right? So you're running, you're pregnant, you're running, you're working out, you feel good, like still do these exercises as like preventive measures. And then the same thing like postpartum, like if you had a quote unquote like easy pregnancy, like straightforward delivery, like everything's healing, you feel pretty good. Just because you feel good doesn't mean that you're like physiologically healed. There's like a big distinction between that. So you should still be doing sort of like general exercises to prep. But like if you're dealing with an issue, if you're dealing with pain, if you're dealing with so like, groin pain, pelvic girdle pain, low back pain, sciatica, or if you're dealing with like leaking or like those prolapse heaviness symptoms, you definitely should go see somebody and get checked out. So whether that's I'm not a like pelvic health like a certified pelvic health PT who does like internal work and that sort of thing. I work like from the outside in, so we can make a lot of inferences based on your movement patterns and your strength on what's going on with your pelvic floor. So even just doing, like if you a lot of moms that I talk to, like myself, live in a very rural area and there's not access to like a pelvic health PT that's close by. So getting in touch with somebody who does virtual assessments, right? Like I do that too. So doing an assessment of some kind, right? Like if that's all you have, do that so that you can get individualized exercises. Because I think a lot of times the thought process as moms and as runners and athletes is like, oh, if I just power through this, like everything's going to be okay. And I think we need to take a step back and reevaluate if that's really the best approach or if we need help from somebody else.
Yes, I have talked about this a lot in that like I've suffered 3 major injuries in the past 4 years, which was like after having my son, starting to run more competitively. And I believe it took me that long to finally go see a pelvic floor PT. And it's like
Yeah.
smoking gun was my pelvic floor. It wasn't terrible, but it was with as much as I was running and all that, like it just accumulated and created just a mess. And so I
Yeah.
like all of the athletes that I coach who are pregnant or postpartum. I'm like, please, you will not regret taking the time to go see a pelvic floor PT. And it's insurance against future injuries and pain. Like,
Right.
I mean, it really
Yeah.
sucks to run and be in pain. It's not that
Right.
endorphin boost that you want.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's hard though because a lot of times, and even just as a society, we're not thinking of the prevention piece.
Oh
We
yeah.
like wait, right? Like we wait until there's pain. We wait until it's unbearable. We wait until we can't we can't run, we can't lift, we can't walk even, right? Like, oh, I can't run, I started walking. But it's like, well, why did you stop running and why are you now walking? There's like a disconnect there. Like, are you doing anything in that middle there to get treatment for what's going on? And so, I love to try to catch moms like before they have issues, to try to like prevent them, and like, let's do this rehab to get you back to running postpartum safely and well. But the truth of the matter is that a lot of moms come to me after they've already been dealing with issues, after they've already seen other PTs, after they've already seen, orthopedic specialists, and they can't figure it out. So it's unfortunate that it sort of like comes to that, just like you said, like it's like you waited a long time, right? And
Yeah.
and like hindsight is always clearer, and you're like, oh, why didn't I like do that? Why didn't I do that sooner? And I see that a lot. So true.
Yeah, because it's not the most obvious thing, because it's like,
Right.
oh, my first injury was, oh, I tore my hamstring. So you focus on the hamstring, and you focus
Right.
on like the big muscles, and there's just not a lot of education, and it's getting so much better about those deep core muscles and those tiny stabilizer muscles and how important they are for carrying the weight,
Yeah.
literally, when you're running with, each footfall. It is nuts to me that people such as yourself can do a virtual assessment, because it's like you are looking for like the finest things, and that you're able to see that via a Zoom call or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
that's such a talent and skill.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's fun to do. Moms love the convenience of that, because I can see people wherever they live. And it's interesting because I've gotten some pushback from moms about signing up for doing that, because they're like, if you're not with me, you're not in the same room, how can XYZ? But I've also, the moms who I have worked with, I've gotten like really positive feedback. They're like, wow, I can't believe that you can see that. And you're in we optimize the conditions so that I can see you and see you well, and have you move and move the camera and stuff like that. But yeah, simple movement assessment. And just like you mentioned with like repetitive injuries, that's usually like a surefire like red flag, like, oh, I have IT band tendonitis, and now my hip hurts, and now my IT band is hurting again. Now I have low back pain. And it's like, okay, well, you've seen like
Yeah.
3 therapists and nothing is helping. So there's got to be something else going on. So a lot of times you're right. We focus on like the actual injury, but
Mhm.
most of the time the injury is the result of something going on. So that's not usually the cause. The cause is usually happening somewhere else. So to be able to like suss that out and figure out like what's going on in your movement pattern, what's going on with your strength. You probably have some weakness somewhere that's causing, for example, your hamstring to compensate, and so now your hamstring is injured. But that's not really, yes, we need to treat that pain, but what is the root cause that we need to treat and fix in order to prevent that from happening again? Right.
Yes, which is like the problem with Western medicine, is like
Yeah.
we're treating the effects instead of looking at the root cause. And when it comes to running, with it being a repetitive sport, it is so important to look under the hood, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'll have your website in the show notes, but it's rachelpope.co. Is that what it is?
That's right. Yeah. That's CO.
Okay. And so people can, if they're interested in working with you and perhaps getting one of those virtual assessments, they can just reach out to you through the site.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank
Absolutely.
you so much for sharing your story and sharing your knowledge. And we'll have to talk again when it's my kids aren't hungry, and but your baby is sleeping so peacefully. So
Oh yes, we do this every day. This is mom's like work time, and she's used to sleeping like this. I don't know what I'm going to do when she's too big to sleep like this, or she sleeps on the boppy. She almost doesn't fit on the boppy anymore. So
oh,
um,
that's
I'm
amazing.
enjoying it while we can. Yeah,
She's gonna like you're gonna just have to record yourself talking to just, like that's gonna be what lulls her to sleep.
yeah, I know, right? That's why she can't sleep without me ever.
Yeah, my kids were like that too. And that's how I worked too, is I had a baby Bjorn, and they were just always, and I was just doing everything. But
Yeah.
for me, like it hurt my back over time. I don't know. But I'm not a PT, so you probably know what to do to like counteract the low back pain from wearing.
Yes, lots of exercise and strength training in addition to my running and everything else I do.
Yes, I was not good about that at all when my kids were babies. I was
Yeah.
just surviving. Not thriving. I was surviving. Well, Rachel, thank you so much. And I'll be in touch because I have other topics I want to talk to you about.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds so great. Thanks so much for having me, Whitney. This was really fun.
Thanks, Rachel.